It is time for this Scramble Podcast alongside Chris Flynn. I am Paul Hollingsworth. Now, Chris, the first thing I've noticed is your bar shenanigans looks a little bit different. It's the same facility, but I'm getting a bit of a different backdrop. Have you renovated the place? What's going on there?
No, I just reserved a different seat for tonight, so it's the same bar, just a different angle.
Well, it looks pretty good, and that Philadelphia Flyers logo is prominent over your left shoulder, so it looks pretty good. Listen, we're going to make this one a little quicker. We don't have a guest this week, but a lot of things to plow through. First of all, topical news of the day, topical news of the week. Tom Brady announces his retirement. Your reaction to this is what?
Yeah, well, like for a lot of people, it's the second time. In fact, he did it on the exact same day, February 1st again this year. But I feel like this time it's for real. It's only been a couple of days. Just the way he said it in his video, it just feels like it's for real this time. I know Robert Kraft even today wanted to sign him up for a one-day contract so he can officially retire as a Patriot. Would I be shocked if he came back? No, but I think it's for real this time. I guess that's my initial feeling there on these last 2 days.
And my thought is this: he's not going out on top, but he's not going out necessarily at Brett Favre at a point where he just can't play anymore. I mean, he led his team to the playoffs. We can debate what kind of effective year he had. We can debate his performance in that playoff game recently. But this is a guy who can still play. So if he wanted to leave at a point of respectability where his game was still intact, even with his age, he's going out with a very healthy career body of work at this time.
It's crazy how it's hard to know how healthy he is, but it seems like he played his whole 20-some year career relatively injury free for the most part. It's amazing. And yes, he could definitely play for another team, like let's say a San Francisco 49ers team with the team they have and the running game and the receivers. As I mentioned in the previous podcast, he needs kind of a play action game around him to be successful at this time stage in his career. So he could definitely still play, but I think at just at one point, and everything he went through this year off the field too was probably a bit of a factor. And money's not an issue. Apparently he's signing up with Fox for whatever 300 some million. So money's not an issue too. I think he just got a little bit tired this year, like emotionally and physically tired. I felt like that was kind of what happened to him this year. And he finally just said, okay, I have nothing else to prove. I guess, maybe it's time to step away. That's kind of the feeling I got.
Well, as he walks away from the NFL as a player and he goes to the broadcast booth, I will say in my career, I covered him quite a few times. I interviewed him, I will say 3 times, and really good guy. I know people find superstars by their nature to be polarizing. There are people who love Tom Brady, who don't love Tom Brady. I think you have to respect his body of work. You respect his age, the work that goes into maintaining that level of durable athleticism. But as a journalist who interviewed him and asked him questions, respectable guy, clearly well brought up, very well mannered, very polite, very pleasant, positive, buoyant guy to be around. And in some sort of universe where if I ever get to know him away from football, I've always thought that he's my kind of guy, like a positive, pleasant fellow to be around. So I hope he transitions well. A likable guy and one hell of a career.
And I'll just say anyone that really doesn't like him is because they hate him because he wins all the time. So it's the anti-patriot kind of fans don't like him, but otherwise, yeah, he seems to be a real down to earth guy, and his teammates always loved him too. You could see that as well. So that's it's sad to see him go a little bit, but obviously, he had a great career, and you can't play forever.
Shifting from Tom Brady to the AFC playoff game that just happened, Kansas City versus Cincinnati. If you talk to Bengals fans and you follow them on social media, they will say the game was rigged. It wasn't rigged. But some of the calls do raise questions about how that game was called. I counted 2, maybe 3 controversial missed illegal blocks, backfield plays that weren't called. I think the push on Mahomes was a legit call, although it was a fluid play, a bang play. Put yourself in the quarterback's shoes on that play. Did you like the call, but did you understand how it happened?
I even had a few of my old teammates message me about it as well. And It was more of a late push out of bounds and a late hit, but it was a pretty good push. Mahomes went flying. I'll say this, I'm sure the referee didn't really want to call a penalty in that situation, but he almost went flying into the bench. It was definitely late. As some of my teammates said, it wasn't even a late hit. It was a late push out of bounds, but how could the ref not call that? Like, he was quite a bit out of bounds. I wish he went to call it. I wish it went to happen. I wish it would have went into overtime. It didn't finish that way, but the player put the ref in a bad spot where he pretty well had to call that, just the way Mahomes kind of went flying, and it's Mahomes who's injured too. So if he didn't call it and the Bengals won, oh geez, like the Chiefs fans would have been just so. There's always one fan base that's disappointed after a loss. There's a couple other calls too, a holding penalty that gave the Chiefs a first down too. But overall, it was a great game. And Burrow maybe didn't have his best game, but it was tied 20-20 with 10 minutes left. So it was anyone's game. Bengals had a few drives and a few opportunities to go ahead in the end of the game to win it. It was looked like it was going in overtime, and it was anyone's game. And you got to credit Mahomes. I've played injured a few times too. Sometimes when you're injured, it almost takes the pressure off you a little bit to go out there and play well. And Mahomes, with a very badly sprained ankle, had an awesome game, and looking forward to the next game.
Joe Burrow is a player who fascinates me. I'm not a Bengals fan. I'm a Burrow fan. Chris, this kid has swag. He's not
Mm-hmm.
arrogant. What does Dwayne the Rock Johnson say? It's not talking smack if you can back it up. There's something about his demeanor that appeals to me. There's an appropriate amount of brashness and confidence that comes through when you watch him play. Very quickly on the Bengals before we move on, when you see Burrow, you see what, and how do you see him projecting going forward once he goes to that veteran status?
It started kind of midway through last season or the end of last season. They started getting on a little bit of a roll, and went at a great playoff run and almost won the Super Bowl. And then it continued. Actually, this year he got off to a slow start again, and then ended up winning 10 games in a row. And like you said, they asked him about what's his window of opportunity for winning. He said, my career, as long as I'm here, and that's the truth. So I like that in Burrow, the way he went in the Buffalo 2 weeks ago and won. Like, he's impressive. And yeah, Cincinnati's will have a chance to win the Super Bowl over the next 10 years. Of course, there's Buffalo, and there's the Chiefs as well. So the AFC's got some great, two or three great quarterbacks, and there's a couple other teams that might get up there too. But I like Joe Burrow too, absolutely. I kind of was going for them this past weekend because they were the only one of the four teams that hadn't won a super. They've never won a Super Bowl, so I was kind of going for them just for that reason. But he'll get his chance again, and I'm sure the Bengals will be back again next year.
I didn't really have a rooting interest in that game. I will agree with you. I was probably leaning Cincinnati because I'm a Burrow fan. I'm not a huge Travis Kelce fan. And I like Mahomes, and I love the fact that I followed his father as a baseball player growing up. So I appreciate the whole story there. Cincinnati's time is coming. That's why I think they're easy to cheer for. Probably not yet. So let us springboard forward. We have the Eagles. We have the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Both of these teams have won in recent years. The Chiefs, obviously, more recent. How do you see the matchup? How do you see the rosters?
It's like a lot of people are saying, it's hard to figure out the Eagles because they haven't been challenged yet. They beat the Giants, I think, 38-7. Then they beat the 49ers 31-7. They haven't even had a close game yet in the playoffs. They haven't been challenged yet. So it's really hard to get a feel for how good they are. You'd have to think they're the favorite because they're healthier and they seem to be unstoppable. But do you really want to bet against Mahomes? And Mahomes will have 2 more weeks to get healthier, maybe not 100%, but to get healthier. So it's going to be interesting. The Chiefs have they've been in 5 AFC championship games in a row. They've been in, is it 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls? So the Chiefs are battle tested as far as Super Bowls go. The Eagles were in it, I think, maybe 5 years ago, but probably almost a whole different roster. So Eagles will probably be favored, but I think it's going to be a great game, and I think definitely the Chiefs could win. We'll wait for next week to do our picks, I guess.
For sure. I will say the NFL, by its very nature, is filled with passionate fans. All you need to do is go to a tailgating party in Buffalo to witness the passion of the fans. When I think of the Eagles, I think of them losing when I was a kid to the Oakland Raiders. The Oakland Raiders were a wild card team. I
Yes.
think that was back in 1981, if my date is
Jaworski,
correct.
maybe.
Yeah, Jaron Jaworski, that's right. And then I was assigned for TSN to cover Eagles training camp 6 or 7 years ago. And they had the inter-squad game in Philadelphia, in the stadium, dark playing practice jerseys versus white playing practice jerseys, inter-squad game. And without exaggeration, there were 60,000 people there on a weekday afternoon. I had never seen anything like this. I realize for the people watching this show that is somewhat routine around the NFL. But for a young man from Nova Scotia to be dropped into the city of brotherly love and to see that kind of passion, Chris, it was jaw-dropping. It was eye-popping. The Philadelphia fan base, to me, from a baseball standpoint, from a hockey standpoint, and certainly from a football standpoint, they are a force of nature. So the point I'm coming to is the Super Bowl for me became especially interesting because the passion of that Philadelphia sports fan base has always been something I keep my eye on.
Yes, and being a Flyers fan, I'm very aware of that. It's right back to the 70s with the Broad Street Bullies. And I'll give a quick shout out to a couple of my buddies, Bill Brady and Phil Moraine, to name two guys who are big Eagles fans. So yeah, so it should be an exciting Super Bowl.
And before we wrap it up, just a quick comment on the NFL postseason to date. We've had dramatic postseasons in the past. We've had lopsided scores sometimes in the postseason. How have you enjoyed this ride leading into Super Bowl Sunday, which is the week after this weekend?
Oh, it's been great for sure. I think everyone's enjoyed it. It's almost sad a little bit when you get to the Super Bowl because there's no more games left, no game this weekend. So for a lot of people, it's a little bit bittersweet as you get to the Super Bowl and the playoffs are over, the wild card weekends are all over. So yeah, not even any hockey this weekend. So quiet weekend this weekend for sure, and one more game left.
Before we wrap it up here, next week we'll be back with the guest leading into Super Bowl Sunday.
For sure. And Paul, I just want to mention too, on social media this week, just seeing St. Mary's introducing the new Hollingsworth Family Scholarship Fund. That's pretty cool, and saw it on social media, and that's great initiative by you. And I just wanted to ask you quickly a little bit more details about it.
Thank you for bringing it up. It means the world to me. So when I was at St. Mary's, my brother passed away. That was in 1991, just after you left. And then I got through that, and that's been part of my story. And then this past summer, my other sibling, my sister, passed away. So I made a donation to St. Mary's University to fund a scholarship. So one student who is entering St. Mary's as a first-year student each year will be eligible for a $1,000 scholarship. And it's going to be based on the criteria. There's always the criteria of financial need, but based on the more precise criteria that you've endured the loss of a sibling or a parent. It touches on my experience, and based on how I funded the scholarship, there's going to be enough. If it's $1,000 a year, there's going to be enough for 12 to 15 years, at least to start. And I plan to fundraise to get the amount up as well and make sure it's a well-funded scholarship. Anyone who knows me knows my thoughts on St. Mary's. I was privileged to go there. The big fact that I got through these points of adversity in my life when I was young is largely in part because of the people at St. Mary's, how they supported me. And Chris, I know you have a lot of affection for the school. So you get to a point in your age where you can do something like this. It's rewarding. It made me feel good. And I was very happy to do it. And very special thanks to St. Mary's for allowing me to do it and to work in partnership with me on this.
Absolutely, Paul, and it's a great initiative by you, and people are really impressed. I'm sure St. Mary's is honored that you're doing this, and you should feel proud because it's a great thing that you've started with St. Mary's.
I appreciate you saying that, man. To whom much is given, much is required. I say it out loud every single day. So this is a bit of a quick snapper of a podcast, Chris. We just wanted to do a bit of a bridge podcast in between having some guests. The NFL taking the week off is kind of messing us up. We are going to get into some hockey themes more specifically with guests And baseball season fast approaching as well. So we're going to expand out of this and maybe even some non-sports guests, but we want to keep the beat going on here and make sure that people can still watch and listen to us every single week. So this wraps up another edition of the Scramble Podcast. The ultimate scrambler, Chris Flynn in beautiful Long Lake, Quebec. I am Paul Hollingsworth in Dartmouth. We shall see you next time on the Scramble Podcast.